Hello and welcome to Cake Flour 101, my free masterclass. I did this just over a year ago, I think, the last time. So, yeah, a little bit of a delay for this one, but it's here and I'm excited. And yeah, hopefully you're going to learn a lot from this today. Just a few little things. If you don't want to be on camera, that is absolutely fine. If you don't want to comment much or say anything on the chat, that's also fine. But if you have got any questions as we go along, please feel free to put them in the chat. Um, if you're watching this on replay, you are more than welcome to send me a message on my socials or my email address, which will be at the end. And then I can get back to you that way. And I'll try and get to the questions as and when, as I've got the chat up on the screen. But if I do miss anything, please just shout at me towards the end where I put a sort of a bit of a Q&A as well. So, yes, hello and welcome. Thanks for being here. So, a little bit about me, because I don't know how many of you might know about me, but my name is Chrissy. I should be on camera. I can't see myself. I see any trouble. I own Primrose Cakes. I'm based in Suffolk in the UK. I've been running my cake business for 10 years now, well, as of next month. So, not quite the 10 years, but very close to. I've been a weddings only service for 5 years, and funny enough, I've now gone back into some celebration cakes, but I am relatively busy with weddings, so I don't make celebration cakes that often. Overall, I love working with flowers. I'll work with any type. Silk flowers, I make sugar flowers. I've just recently learned about wafer flowers, but fresh flowers, I do love, and I'm somewhat obsessed, you could say. Um, I have given feedback to the Food Standards Agency. So this is going back quite a while now, a couple of years ago, I think, where the FSA was starting to write a guidance based on floristry and food. Unfortunately, that takes a little bit of a back seat with them because they have other priorities that come through. But they are still in progress with it, and I do keep in contact with them regularly. So I have seen the first couple of drafts. I've then given feedback on it, and they're still hopefully keeping in contact with me with it as well. But I do have to have a slight disclaimer. All my advice is based on the laws and regulations and guidance that is from the UK. So if you are not from the UK, you will have to check with your own governing body wherever you are from. Every country is different in terms of food safety, which I'm sure a lot of us are very aware. In the UK, we are governed by the Food Standards Agency, so they have many environmental health teams in each county or local authority. Again, they differ between them as well, so it's always best to check in your local area what their advice is based on the things that I talked to you about today, because it's not one size fits all at present. And fingers crossed, when they get this guidance sorted, it means that the whole country will be on the same page, so to speak. So I'm going to ask you, I'd like you just to pop a little comment in the box if you can. The first question I always ask is, if someone asks for fresh flowers on their cake, whether it be a wedding or just a birthday cake, how confident would you be? So one is not confident at all. It might actually be that you avoid using flowers full stop. And five, you think you know it all. I wouldn't have thought anyone here would know it all and be here, but who knows? What number might you be? There's only a couple of you in here at the moment. So we've got a two and another two. And that is, I think that is who's in here at the moment, isn't it? So we're at the lower end of the scale. So tiny bit of confidence, but not a lot. So hopefully you can go away at the end of this session with a little bit more confidence. And maybe if you haven't used them before, it might make you think about using them in the future. To be honest, I feel like all of it is all about having confidence. It's knowing what flowers and foliage that you can use or what you can't as well. How to actually arrange them on the cake because design elements come into it a lot. How to apply them safely, so with food safety in mind, and which tools and equipment to use. So having all four of those things as part of your knowledge and your skills will give you that full confidence. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about flower types. So I break it down into three categories: toxic, food safe, and edible. So toxic is absolutely not. Do not use them on a cake. They shouldn't be anywhere near food, full stop. These are the types of, I'm going to call them plants and flowers every now and again, just because then I don't have to say flower and foliage all the time. But these plants would cause symptoms that are similar to food poisoning. So things like vomiting, diarrhea, stomach cramps. It might be breathing problems, hives, itchy skin, contact dermatitis, things like that. So it's a whole range of different symptoms, but they will cause harm to a human being. So we want to keep those ones completely away from our cakes. We've got then the category of food safe. So they are non-toxic. They don't have any toxic properties that would actually harm us, but we still need to take precaution to stop any cross-contamination of other things, such as pesticides and whatnot. Um, so they won't cause any harm if they're ingested, but they can affect the cake taste, the texture, and I'm sure no one would actually want to have any part of that plant in their cake when they're trying to eat it. And then the third category is edible. So this is allowed to be consumed. They can have complete contact, direct contact with the cake, and they have been produced for consumption. So they should have been grown in conditions of which there are no chemicals used that would cause harm to us at all. So very popular things are such as the pressed dried flowers, for instance, which we do see still quite a lot on cake. Can anyone name any of the flower types or foliage on that page at all? Is anyone good at recognizing flowers? Give you a minute in case you are typing. Okay, we've got eucalyptus. That is correct. Yeah, one of them is eucalyptus. Quite often see that on cakes, actually. We've got so gyp, which is poisonous, absolutely. Cosmos, I'm assuming. Ranunculus, eucalyptus as well, and we've got baby's breath, yeah, which is the other word for gyp. Um, absolutely. So yeah, good recognition there from both of you. Um, that's okay. I'm assuming your name is Dawn, but that's absolutely fine. Don't worry about your spelling tonight. My spelling is usually terrible. So, I'm going to move on to the toxic plants. And actually, a lot of what you see on the screen right now is part of the toxic family or the category, should I say. Um, so, we've got Gypsophila. Some people call it Gypsophilia. Whatever you say it doesn't really matter, or baby's breath. Eucalyptus ruscus, it's usually a soft ruscus, which is what you actually see pictured there. Anemone, ranunculus, lilies, all types of lilies, and iris. So just some examples of some toxic plants that actually are very, very pretty. They are used in a lot of things like weddings. And unfortunately, I do see a lot of those on cakes still. And I will quite happily put my hands up and say that I am the gyps police. You might see that in some of the cake groups when people are either posting cakes with gyps on it, and they often get that sort of jokey comment of, "Oh, watch out, the gyps police will be here." That is me, because I'm very much anti-toxic plants on cakes, 100%. So yeah, the FSA are basically saying that if there's any risk to harm, um, sort of as in ingesting or touching, being near food, we need to reduce that risk, whatever it is. So it's not like the FSA are going to conduct a test on humans to see how much it would harm us. Um, However, there is a history of when people have accidentally had it in the past. They know that our bodies react to it in that certain way. So there is going to be a known risk. We need to make sure that we're reducing that as much as possible. Um, so sorry, my little screen has decided to do something silly. Okay, so looking at how we can think about alternatives, The easy answer might be that we just use faux flowers, but don't let that stop you completely. So, what do we do when a client really wants a type of flower that has toxic properties? I know that I talk to many clients. I have lots of consultations each year for all my wedding couples. A lot of them like fresh flowers on the cakes. Um, they're especially with something like gyps and eucalyptus. They're, I have to break the news to them and say, sorry, I don't use it. I have to give them the reason why. Most of them, in fact, probably 99% of them are very understanding. They take me as the expert. But it's always good to then be able to have a conversation with them and think about what are those other alternatives going to be without just putting faux flowers on there. And is there something that might be very similar in color, size, and shape that we can replace it with? So florists could tell us what is similar if you don't know it yourself. I know it's taken me even a long time just to actually get to a point where I can go, oh, let's have that one instead. What I tend to find is florists obviously have a particular order for a wedding, and if they're supplying the flowers for the cake as well, I don't want to put the extra stress on them to find an alternative flower just for the cake because the expense can be a lot higher. So we want it to be sort of like a mutual agreement so that we're not putting anyone out as such. But yeah, there's three examples there. So Elysianthus wax flowers, they're a brilliant alternative to Gypsophilia. They don't look exactly the same, but tiny little white flowers, very sweet, which I love using instead. And olive leaf as well. So that could be in place of something like eucalyptus. So it's still a green leaf, and actually olive leaf all year round looks really nice as well. So we don't have to worry about seasonal properties there. I'm sure some comment. And I was just going to add that if we are going to use faux alternatives as well, just because they're not a fresh version or even a dry version that would still add toxic properties to our cake, we still need to make sure that we're doing a safe application of those stems as well, because they are just plastic and wires, which shouldn't be going directly into a cake either. So thinking about the safe application, um, I have like an essentials toolkit. This is something that I always recommend to everybody. So we are hoping that that toolkit has at least some flower picks, something to cut the stems with. So I've actually got florist scissors now. Treated myself last year because I was forever just using a pair of old scissors. Pliers, wire cutters, any other like floral tape, all that sort of stuff is going to help you as part of your toolkit to prepare the flowers. However, stems, even if they are taped, must still go into a posy pick because the tape is not actually fully, and as it says on the screen there, complete and waterproof barrier. So it must be complete. It must be completely waterproof to make sure that nothing can unravel, get into the cake. No edibles, unfortunately. So something like melted chocolate or waxes. I know we used to have like a safety seal that got discontinued because of why it didn't work. And I know there is still a couple of products possibly still out there, but they can break off in the cake and end up being consumed as well, which is still leading to a contamination. And the only posy picks that I do recommend are the PME ones because of the food safe material that they're made from. In the picture at the top, you'll see some blue ones. I actually use those for the faux ones. So it just depends on what you're doing. But as long as you're not getting your posy picks from somewhere like Temu or AliExpress, and you are using them from a reputable supplier such as a cake supplier, then they should be made of a food safe plastic. And then where are we going to get the flowers from? So I've already spoken a lot about florists. So for me, I work with florists all the time. So if I've got fresh flowers going on a cake, then no doubt I'm going to be ringing a florist and saying, right, what can you provide for me? Reputable florist is absolutely key. Because you know that they've been working in the industry for an X amount of time. They've probably had some training. They know what they're talking about. Not just any old person that is selling flowers. Already mentioned this, but florists, because they're providing part of a package already for the wedding, sometimes you can keep going back to them. And because they're already supplying for the event anyway, it means that it's less work for everybody. Um, they are fresher than supermarkets. They will last longer generally because they're ordering them in fresh. We don't know how long they've been sat in the supermarkets for. And they can order things in for you. And generally, florists will have flowers that have less pesticides. And actually, some florists are getting really good at finding more organic grown flowers as well. So yes, they are a little bit more expensive, but if we can reduce that safety or the risk, sorry, and make them safer, then it's even better. So supermarket flowers, they're not always labelled properly. One example here, lovely bunch of sunflowers with roses and gyps. I'd love that in a little vase on a summer's day. But all it says on there is a summer bouquet. Doesn't actually tell what they are. So unless you are using something that tells you what the flowers are, or you have your own knowledge, you're not going to necessarily know what the variety is. But it's also not going to tell you if they're toxic. Um, I will say though, in recent months, depending on the shop, some of them are saying if they are toxic. And I'm assuming it's probably more for something like child safety and maybe pet safety, but it definitely is getting a little bit better. But we still can't rely on the supermarkets to provide flowers that are going to be the safest option. I would always say go to a florist. And if you are looking at faux alternatives, find a good quality stockist. Again, try and avoid those cheaper online sites that come from somewhere like China. They're often not durable enough and they also look cheap. I tend to go to Dunelm. They have a really nice range of faux flowers. But I also have, I'm very lucky, very local to me, about 10, 20 minutes down the road, I've got a floristry, like wholesalers, I suppose, but they have literally got hundreds of different types of faux flowers in every color you can imagine, every flower type. So if you have got something like that nearby, it's definitely worth having a look. And some of the normal fresh flower wholesalers as well, sometimes they have a faux range, so it's definitely having a look, worth having a look in there. Um, I always keep a small stock of them so that if I have a consultation, I can show them what it actually looks like. Because I know that some people, they hear the word faux or silk flowers and they're just like, oh, they're not going to be good enough quality. Once you find good quality stuff, keep it. And then you can show your clients as well what it looks like. So that picture there has got fresh red roses on it with the faux gyps that I use, or one of the types of faux gyps. I have two different types. And yeah, you can't really notice exactly. Yes, closer inspection, or if you know what you're looking for, you probably, you'd be able to tell quite well. But general public, not so much. Okay, so thinking about how we're actually going to use all these flowers on our cakes, I talk a lot about flower arranging, and I don't think you need to have any floristry knowledge at all to arrange flowers on a cake. I haven't got any floristry training. Yes, I've got many years of experience in doing it, but at the same time, I weren't trained in it. But I've got to know my cakes. I know what size they are. I know the structure of them. I know how many flowers they can actually take and hold. So over time, you can kind of get used to it. Um, but you do need to know your flower and foliage types and the colours and sizes. So we do generally know that most single stem roses are a certain size head. Yes, a few can be bigger. I know that when I've had some from a florist before, I've arrived on the day to put them on, and they've given me this lovely bucket of beautiful flowers, and the heads are nearly twice the size that I thought they would be. And it's trying to then rejig how my design might work, or having to use less because they take up more space. But I tend to ask the florists to give me, say, slightly smaller heads, because they like to use the really big, luscious ones in the bouquets and things anyway, just so that at least we can still match. But four things that I focus on. So line, mass, form, and filler. It is part of a floristry course, but those are the four things that are really going to start to make you think about how you're going to arrange them on your cake and what sort of design it's going to be, whether they're going to be, in the picture there, I've got a lovely cascade going down one side. Um, but yeah, how are they actually going to all fit together? And we're not going to put too much of one flower and not enough of the other. We're going to think about how they are actually going to all fit and look nice. And when I plan my floral cakes, I'm thinking about the flower and the foliage types first. Then I look at the color scheme. Generally, clients are having to give this to me anyway. Then I'm thinking about the cake sizes and the number of tiers. And I also consider the budget because even if they've got a 4 or 5 tier cake and they say, yes, I want big cascades coming down, um, when I speak to the florist and say, okay, I'm going to need 20 heads of this, 20 heads of that, I need this many stems of foliage. Um, they might be looking at their invoice and thinking, oh, we haven't got enough budget for that. So I have a good conversation with the florist. I also have and mention to the clients, you know, there might be a recalculation of something here and there, but also budget of cake, because the longer I am there trying to get the flowers onto the cake, the more they need to pay me per hour. So if they have a really large cake with a huge cascade or a spiral going around, and I am at the venue for nearly 2 hours putting it all together, obviously that budget is going to have to be increased. So it's really important to sort of consider that as well. I do sort of four main arrangements. So cascades, keep talking about them in a minute. Posies, which is what you see on the left. I do what's called a bouquet, although sometimes I call it a spray. So it's not necessarily going from top to bottom. It might just be a spray of flowers that goes along one side of the cake, for instance. And a wreath, which I then do either around the top of the cake or around the edge between the tiers, things like that. So yeah, it's interesting to sort of see how these fit into what the clients want. And then obviously consider what flowers I'm going to use and whether it's actually going to work um, for these particular arrangements. Checking questions again. So out of interest, hopefully assuming everyone knows what a posy pick or a flower pick is, for this particular cake, so it had fresh white rose stems and spray roses, and the blue flowers are actually faux because we didn't have a blue flower in season that was suitable. But how many flower picks do you think I used on this? I've got one answer of 31, one answer of 15. No, there wasn't anyone else joining us, was there? It's actually 22, so right in the middle of you both. But yeah, some of the flower picks had more than one stem in. So the spray roses, the stems are very, very thin compared to the single stem roses. And then those faux flowers, um, they also had quite a thin stem. So sometimes I could use um, one pick for several stems. And that is where the floral tape comes in handy because I could tape those together, get those into the pick, pop that into the cake. I am finding, I must say, the single stem roses at the moment, the stems have been so thick this year or the last year. Um, and they tend to use up quite a lot of the picks. I'm not worried about how many I use, but obviously the more I use, the more structure of the cake I'm starting to risk. So yeah, it's sort of thinking very cleverly about how I can adjust that. It is really important to think about spreading the weight of the flowers because obviously they do have their own weight. Um, but also the angle of which you are putting those picks in, and whether it's going to weigh it down. I tend to find so I don't actually do buttercream cakes anymore. I do semi-naked mostly, and then the fully covered icing ones. And those are definitely the better ones for fresh flowers, especially a lot of them because the icing and the ganache underneath really helps to hold that structure. Um, but yeah, you don't want to damage it too much, especially if when the venues are taking all the flowers out, you just think they're going to rip them all out or damage the cake. But by that point, it's all been ready to cut up, so it's not so bad. Um, so thinking about all the different types of flowers that you can use and how they can be arranged on the cake. I often use sketching to visualize, and it's for yourself and for your clients. Um, you don't have to have anything special for this. I know a lot of people do a lot of digital sketching of things now for cakes, and I know there's a course out there for it. I dabbled in it myself, but actually, I found it easy to draw by hand. I am originally I've worked in graphic design and art as well, so as a teacher. So for me, pencil and paper is the way I go. But yeah, basic drawing equipment, pencil and paper is enough. Colouring pencils are actually just a bonus. I actually use watercolour paints for most of mine now, and I also have what you can see in that photo. I have some metallic paints as well, so that if I'm going to be adding gold leaf, things like that, I can add that to the cake just to give it a nice effect for the client to look at. But the sketch for me is working out roughly how many flowers I need, where they're going to go. And I've then got that in front of me on the day. So if anything does change and the florist does give me things that are smaller or bigger than I imagined, then I've still got that guide and I can think, right, we'll just place it there instead and whatnot. So got some examples, some other sketches, sorry, and the real cakes. So this was the original sketch, and then the floral arrangement, and then the florist did a what's it called? Sorry, flower meadow. Sorry, around the cake. My words got lost. And then there's that one. So this is what I would call a wreath because it goes around the edge of the cake. And then we had a little posy on the top. A nice little cascade there as well. And then this is the one I called a bouquet, but sometimes I call it just a spray. But you can see here, I knew I was going to get some beautiful peonies from the florist, so I'd made sure that I arranged them in the middle, and then I would have all the smaller ones on the outside. Now this is a 6, 8, 10, 12 cake, but I didn't actually think the peonies would be that big. So, well, she actually gave me 3 as I'd asked, but I could only fit 2 on, and it was again it's because of the weight of them. And no matter how much I pushed in or as far as I could the posy pick, um, I could see it slightly dropping, so I had to almost use the smaller flowers underneath to prop them up. And I thought I'm not even going to risk the third one. But yeah, everybody was happy with that anyway. Is there anyone that's got any questions at this time? I'm going to summarize everything in a moment, but just in case I've missed anything, you've got anything looming as a question? No, all great so far. That's great. Thank you. So I'm just going to summarize up. I've probably spoken a little bit quicker than I usually do, but with little people in here, it's a bit easier to carry on talking. So we've looked at 3 different types of categories of plants, flowers and foliage, and toxic, food safe, and edible. So a reminder that toxic should be nowhere near food or cakes. Food safe, I think, did I call it something else at the beginning? I did, didn't I? They can be used on cakes, but they need to be protected and prepared in a way that is going to keep anything from cross contaminating. And edible is for all those that are manufactured to be edible and consumed by us as humans. They need to be applied safe to the cake with a complete and waterproof barrier between the stem and the cake, excluding the edible varieties that are for consumption. There are lovely and great faux alternatives for toxic varieties if we are really stuck at finding a fresh alternative that might be close in shape, size, or colour. Um, Always purchase from reputable florists to ensure that trust. Try and avoid those supermarkets. You will need knowledge of plant types, colours, and sizes to plan the cake flower arrangement. So not only are we trying to protect our cakes from any risk of harming someone, it's really important to know those flower types for the arrangements as well. And then for the different flower types, I've spoken about cascades, a bouquet, or a spray, posies, or wreaths. Sketching is a really good way to visualize and plan your arrangements. So not only for yourself, but also to show your clients. I tend to use those sketches as you saw, but some people might do a front view and a top view, depending on how the sorry, I've forgotten where my train of thought went. So yeah, a side view or front view, side view, a top view. So depending on how those flowers are going to be laid out, it might be easier to show it from different views rather than just the front. And yeah, communication with your clients and the florist is absolutely key. And I do know, and I've got some big stories to tell about florists. But a lot of florists will say, well, that's never been a problem. That's, I've always done this and things like that. But they're not the ones that are actually holding the food safety certificate. And based on what the FSA are trying to do with their guidance, they are mainly putting the onus on us as the cake maker and the food business owner because we are providing the product that gets eaten. So ideally, cake makers should be responsible for all the decorations that go on their cakes, which means that even if the florists are providing the flowers, we need to obviously educate them on what is going to be suitable, but we are the ones responsible for getting it on there safely or refusing to use something to make sure, we're doing everything we can to reduce that risk. But yeah, I say this time and time again, it's all about having cake flour confidence. It's all about knowing your thing, knowing your stuff, making sure that you can go in with confidence, and then you should be absolutely fine. I am just going to leave that on the screen for a second, and I'm just going to take a drink because I've still got a little bit of a sore throat from where I was poorly last week. Let me just okay. So, okay. So, no questions, which is great. Hopefully, I've covered lots and lots of stuff. So yeah, I have a blog. Admittedly, oh, I was going to just say, do you have a website that you would recommend that lists toxic edible flowers? So actually, I do have a free download which has a small list of them, but I also have another download that has a more extensive list on my website. So I'll quite happily get that link for you in just a second if you want to take a look at that. I was just going to go on to say that my blog is on there, where although it does need updating, I have got a blog on there which is there's one about gyps and one about other foliage, which if you do need to try and evidence your thoughts on refusing to use them on your cakes, then you can sort of use that as a bit of a backup, so to speak. And then on my Instagram, if you don't follow me already, please do. But there is always cake flour stuff on there when I get around to posting it. But let me find that link for you, just one second. So this is the link for the free download. It's only got 7 on there, but it's like the 7 popular ones. Then and this is my more extensive list, which leads me to then mention that I do have a full 3-hour course on cake flowers, which is called Cake Flower Mastery, which I am launching from tonight. So if this is something that really, really interests you and you want to learn even more, so 3 times the amount of content that I've actually gone through tonight, it's over 3 sessions starting on the 25th of February. They are daytime sessions on a Wednesday afternoon. But you'll see here all the course content which it covers. It probably doesn't list everything, to be honest. It's quite hard to fit it on the screen. But we'll go through the flowers in more detail. You actually get the flower list document as well included within that. Um, and if you don't want to worry about sort of purchasing that separately, basically. But we do techniques. I do demos on this course. I will show you actually how to wrap stems, how to get them together, how to use the posy picks effectively, how to insert it into the cake, what tools and materials you need. And I'm all about being or having the mindset of not spending too much money as well, because at the end of the day we all want to reduce our outgoings. So I don't tell you to buy the most expensive things. um we'll look at designing and planning. We'll do that together on the course. I actually give you some templates that you can use for designing the cakes and the flower arrangements on those templates. So if you do it digitally, brilliant. If not, you can print them out and then do it by hand. We look at how we can communicate with florists and our venues and things like that, and our clients as well. So I have got some template letters slash emails that you can use to actually communicate with them. Um, and yeah, ensuring that we are compliant with all food safety regulations, looking at risk assessments as well, because a lot of us may need to start writing them when this guidance, sorry, comes out. So it's definitely worth investing in if this is something that you really want to move forward in your business. You get to use a workbook, so you can write notes during the session, and then you've got that forever. And along with the recordings of the sessions, you can then go back on it at any point through the platforms. So yeah, there's lots and lots of things that you can do. So I am offering that at an early bird offer of £79 at the moment. That is if you book it before the 22nd, so that's about a week away of January. And then it will go up to its standard price. But yeah, were there any more questions from anybody? I'll just leave it on the screen. There is a QR code if anyone wants to have a look at the webpage. And then all the bookings will close on the 11th of February because it just gives me 2 weeks to get prepared with the amount of people that might be attending. Um, and that's that really. So if anyone has got any more questions, please do pop them in the chat or any other information they would like. And I don't mind sticking around for another sort of 5 minutes or so um, if there is anything else. So I've only been asked for fresh flowers twice and can't do Wednesdays, but thoroughly enjoyed the class. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Christine. No, you are more than welcome. Um, but it's still the bookings will be open. So if you do change your mind, it'll be there. And you'll get a replay for this as well. So if you feel like you need to go back on anything, then hang on for another minute or so in case there are any more questions. I know there's only two of you, so I will quite happily leave you be for the rest of your evening. So thank you very much. I will be, like I said, emailing out the link to the replay if you want to rewatch it. And there'll obviously be a link for the Cake Flower Mastery course if you're then interested on booking on. And if you have any questions anytime, even if it was say later on in the year about fresh flowers, please do come to me, whether it's on social media or my email address. You are more than welcome to ask. I'm always here. I like to say that I am the cake flour expert, and I'm not going to say no to any questions. So feel free to contact me anytime. And I'll leave you be. So thank you very much for being here, and I will perhaps see you again soon.